Hello, this is July, and we are talking about stress, nutrition, and how to lower stress but boosting our nutrition. I'm going to get into what we're talking about today, eating slowly, in just one moment. Hey, everybody. I'm glad you joined me today. This is Stress Talk Live, and I am Marcyline, your host, and we are talking about food, nutrition, and stress. Today's topic is savor your food and reduce stress, and why eating slowly should be your new habit. We want this to be a habit. What does eating slowly have to do with stress? We're going to talk about that in just a second. Before I get to it, however, I'd like to ask you to like, follow, and subscribe to ML Bailey Consultants on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. On Facebook and YouTube, that's where you will get to see all of the videos, as the good ones as well as the bad ones, the ones that didn't record well. That's a whole different story that causes me stress. But you get to see those videos live and on replay on Facebook and YouTube. On Instagram, you get to hear from me almost every day with tips that will help you to lower your stress levels for long term, not just for a few minutes, but long term stress relief. Because what I believe in is that we are helping women over 40 to live healthier lives through strategic stress management and solution focused self care. That's our mission. So let's talk about eating slowly. And what in the heck does that have to do with stress? Well, one of the things that you've heard me say repeatedly is that stress is a combination of things. Stress is a physical reaction to an unspecified stimulus. And so when we talk about stress, we're not just talking about the emotional response or the mental response. We're talking about a physical response. And we know that there is our body and our mind is so interconnected. They walk hand in hand. Whatever you do to your body is going to affect your mind. Whatever you do to your mind is going to affect your body. So we want to make sure that we are taking good care of our physical self as well as our emotional and mental self. So, eating has a lot to do with maintaining low stress levels because when our body is stressed, then we are stressed. When I talk about a stressed body, what am I talking about? I'm talking about a body that has to work harder to maintain itself. Um, if your heart is pumping harder and faster, that means that you're putting a strain on your body, right? Your body is having to work hard to maintain itself. Now, when we are in a stress response mode, that's what happens. Our heart beats faster, boom, 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 and harder. It's supposed to, but it's only supposed to do that for a short period of time. It's not supposed to do that for an extended period of time. And that's where we have difficulties because so often our bodies are having to work so much harder because of how we treat it, because we are not eating foods that are healthy for us, or we're overeating, or we're just not drinking enough water. We're not staying hydrated. So it's important for us to make sure that we are doing those things that allows our body to function at its regular, natural pace and not overwork it. If you experience high blood pressure, if you're experiencing diabetes, if you're experiencing arthritis, if you're experiencing any type of condition that compromises your immune system, then your body is having to work harder to stay healthy. It's having to work harder to keep going. And so today, I wanted to share a little bit about eating slowly. Now, I can remember when I was a kid, um, I was a slow eater. I just took my time eating. I don't know. I've always been a slow eater. I guess I haven't stopped doing that. I haven't stopped eating slowly. I've always been a slow eater, but I can remember my parents telling my brother to slow down. Slow down, Douglas. You know what are you doing? You got to catch a train? What do you do? You don't have to catch a bus. Slow down. They were constantly telling him to slow down, to eat slowly. And I thought that was the funniest thing because it just seemed to me that, I guess I was paying attention to what I was eating and not really focusing on how he was eating. But that was a constant at our dinner table where they were telling him to slow down, stop eating so fast. Well, what we have found, researchers have found, is that when we eat slowly, it does help us. And these are some of the things that I want to share with you today. Number one, when we eat slowly, eating slowly lowers our risk of obesity. Now, here in the United States, we are very privileged, and it shows in how our bodies look. We are very healthy. And when I say healthy, I'm talking about weight. We are healthy in terms of our weight. Um, our population is overweight. We just carry around a lot of weight on our bones, on our physical structure. And when we are overweight, again, it makes our heart work harder, our lungs work harder, our muscles and our joints, it puts strain on our muscles and our joints. Eating slowly lowers the risk of being obese. It's one thing to be overweight, which many of us are. Obesity is a totally different thing. Eating slowly, it allows us time for our brain to catch up with our our um, our gastric system, our stomach, and our intestinal system. Right? When we eat slowly, it sends signals to well, when we eat. It sends signals to our brain. It sends signals to our brain that we are eating. It takes about 20 minutes for our brain to detect that we are satisfied, that we have eaten enough. When we're eating fast, when we're eating quickly, when we're gulping our food, when we're taking big bites of food, it doesn't allow our brain time to register that we are satisfied. Now, there's a difference between being satisfied and being full. When we're full, there's a feeling in our stomach that we can feel it, right? We can feel that our stomach might be protruding. Also, we can feel the food in our stomach. It's like, oh boy, I'm so full. Think about Thanksgiving or Christmas when you're eating all that turkey and dressing or ham and macaroni and cheese and mashed potatoes and potato salad and green beans or greens, cornbread, and not to mention the pies, the cakes, the cookies. Okay, let me stop. But think about during holiday time when we're prone to really overeat. We don't often give our brain enough time to determine that we are satisfied, that we have eaten enough for our body. We often eat until we have a feeling of fullness in our stomach. Researchers have found that when we have a feeling of fullness in our stomachs, we've overeaten. When we are eating fast, we tend to overeat. So, what they recommend is that we spend 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes on our meal, allow ourselves 30 minutes for our meal. That gives the brain enough time to determine or to register that we are satisfied, and we can then push away from the table. If we allow that, if we're eating slowly and we're allowing at least 30 minutes for our meal, then we will eat less and we will actually take in smaller portions. Now, I know here in the US, we're real big on portion size. We want more. We want to pay for more. When we pay for more, we're like, yes, give me a big platter of food. The thing about it is, we really don't need that big platter of food to survive or even to thrive. What we really need is to eat smaller portions and to eat it over a longer period of time. Our brain will tell us we don't need any more. Now, what this means is we have to get used to the feeling of being satiated versus that feeling of fullness. That's really what that means. But there is a difference. But when we eat slowly, it actually lowers our risk of obesity, it helps us to eat less and to consume smaller portions. And it also helps our brain, gives our brain time to register that we are satisfied as opposed to full, that we've eaten enough. So that is one of the benefits of eating slowly. Again, obesity causes stress to the body, and being overweight contributes to stress on the body. The next benefit of eating slowly is that it's better for digestion. Think about it. Now, Brian St. Pierre is a registered dietitian, and his company is Precision Nutrition. And one of the things that he talks about is in terms of digestion is really a chain reaction. He described it like this: when we see food, when we smell the aroma of food, or when we think about food, it starts a chain reaction. We start to salivate. That means that our mouths, saliva starts to be produced, and it starts to fill our mouths. Now, I am thinking when I started saying when we see food, when we smell the aroma of food, um, I just about 40 minutes ago, maybe an hour ago, I had dinner and I had greens, baked sweet potato with um, um, roasted pecans and sliced tomatoes. That was dinner. And so when I said that, I started thinking about my dinner and my mouth started salivating. I started getting more moisture in my mouth. So when we see, smell, or think about food, especially food that we enjoy, our mouth starts salivating. Well, that's really just the first part of digestion, right? And when we salivate, it starts preparing us to put food in our mouths. When we put food in our mouths, the saliva helps us to start breaking down the food into smaller pieces, along with chewing. So the saliva has enzymes in it, according to Brian St. Pierre, the registered dietitian, has enzymes in it, and it starts to break the food down. It also moistens, puts moisture in your mouth so that it's easier to swallow, right? So number one, digestion doesn't start when the food hits our stomach. Digestion actually starts when we see, smell, or think about food, because saliva starts to pour into our mouths. Next, when we chewing is part of the digestive system as well, because we have to break the pieces of food down into smaller pieces so that it can go down our throat and into through our esophagus into our stomach. So chewing is a part of that too. How many times do you chew your food? Right? I remember seeing old television shows where they said that mom said to chew your food 50 times. Well, now researchers are saying that we really need to be more conscious of the number of times that we chew our food, because the more we break it down when it's in our mouths, the better it is, the easier it is to digest it when it goes into our stomach. So we want to make sure that we're chewing our food a certain number of times, or at least enough to break the food down to so that when we swallow, we're not swallowing big old chunks of food. So chewing is a part of the digestive system as well. So we start to salivate and we chew. The next steps happen like a chain reaction, right? It doesn't just start. I mean, the stomach doesn't, just because we start eating, the stomach doesn't immediately start to produce acid to break the food down even more. And our intestines don't start moving to move the food through, right? There is a process and it takes time. When we are eating fast, first of all, we're not giving enough time to breaking down food in our mouths with the saliva and with our chewing. Next, we're not giving our stomach enough time to prepare for the food that it's going to get. And then we're not giving our intestines enough time. So when you're eating fast, it's no wonder that you get heartburn, or your stomach starts burning or churning, or you feel bloated if you're eating fast, because we are not allowing the digestive system to work the way it was developed, to work. So eating slowly allows us to have better digestion, because it allows the chain reaction to initiate the way it should. Okay. So your question may be, okay, so I hear all of this, but how? How do we start eating slowly, and what can we do? Okay. So Dr. Heinberg, who is a doctor with Cleveland Clinic, suggests several things. Use a timer. Number one, use a timer. When you use a timer, you can set it for 30 minutes. And you can actually, if you choose, you can put it in front of you. Um, and you can allow yourself that at least 30 minutes to finish your meal. Many of us, however, watch television while we're eating. Most of the time, a lot of the time, the shows are 30 minutes long. If you are finishing your meal before your show goes off, you're probably eating too fast. If you're finishing your meal in total before the show goes off, you've probably overeaten as well as eaten too fast. So you want to you something that gives you some clue as to the amount of time that you're spending on your meal. Now, I am not an advocate of watching TV while eating. Actually, and I self disclosure, I do watch it. I do have a TV on. We have television on while we're eating dinner. Okay, we do. Um, a lot of times I'm not paying attention, but it is on. We'll talk about that in our next stress talk because we're going to be talking about mindful eating. And I'm going to demonstrate for you how to eat mindfully. Woohoo! So, getting back to the use of a timer, you want to give yourself a clue as to how fast you're eating. If you have television on, use the show that is on as an indication, or set a timer. You can set the timer on the stove, set the timer on your cell phone or on the stove. You want to give yourself at least 30 minutes to eat your meal. The other thing is to chew your food. That sounds simple, doesn't it? But chew your food. Her recommendation, Dr. Heinberg's recommendation, is that you chew your food 15 to 30 times, depending on the texture of the food. Now, if you're eating bread, something that dissolves in your mouth, you may not need to chew it 30 times. If you're eating meat, something that takes more to dissolve, you want to chew it at least 30 times, maybe more, because the smaller the pieces that go down your throat into your stomach, the easier it is for it to digest. The other thing that she suggests is that you sip water every few bites. Now, that does a couple of things. It aids in digestion because it moistens, it makes the food moist. That was funny. It puts more moisture into the water, into the food, and then it also helps you to feel fuller as you're eating, so that you're not eating as much. Some people recommend that you drink 8 ounces of water before you even eat a meal. That way your stomach feels fuller and that you're less inclined to overeat. So Dr. Heinberg said, use a timer, chew your food 15 to 30 times, depending on the texture, and to sip water every few bites. The fourth thing that she recommends, and this was recommended by some others, is to put your fork down in between bites. Um, you take a bite of food, put your fork down. I'm looking because the wind is blowing, which means that we're probably about to get some bad weather. Put your fork down. The other thing is when you're scooping food onto your fork, take smaller. Don't scoop like a big old glob of food. Use smaller. Get a smaller scoop of food on your fork. Brian St. Pierre also had some suggestions. One of his suggestions is make sure you designate a period of time to eat. So, although we are eating lunch, we eat lunch, oftentimes we don't sit away from work to eat lunch. We're eating at our desk, which means that we're attending to work, or we're answering the phones, or we're dressing someone who stops by at work. Same with at home. We are not designating a special time for meals only. I know you might have a designated meal time, but are you on your cell phone? Do you have the television on? Are you reading? Are you looking at the newspaper? Are you, what are you doing? Or are you focusing on the food? So set a designated time for meals only. Also, use smaller plates or different utensils. Um, like for example, use chopsticks. Unless you're skilled at using chopsticks, it might be a challenge to eat, which means you're going to eat slower. You're going to. Even if you're skilled with chopsticks, using chopsticks will also cause you to eat slower because it may not be your usual utensil to use when you're eating. And then third, eat high fiber foods, beans, um, whole grains. Eating high fiber foods also contribute to a feeling of fullness, so that you feel full, or you feel at least satisfied, and you feel satisfied longer because it takes longer to digest whole grains as well as high fiber foods. So we've been talking about savor your food and reduce stress, why eating slowly should be your new habit. And I shared with you how to do that. I also shared with you the benefits, one of which is that it lowers the risk of obesity and it's better for digestion. Well, that's all for now. I'm so glad that you joined me. And for those of you who watch on the replay, thanks for doing that. Leave me a note, leave a comment. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. The next Stress Talk Live, I'm going to, as I said before, demonstrate how to eat a meal mindfully. It should be fun. If nothing else, it'll be interesting. I'm Marcyline Bailey. Take good care.